Okay, so we are going to talk about an introduction to variables. And variables are when letters and numbers get mixed up in algebra. And this can be a place where there's feelings of anxiety about math, because it just doesn't make sense that letters and numbers are next to each other. There was a time when we learned math this way, and all the known things would be on this side, and the unknown thing would be all by itself. So we want the unknown thing by itself. Sometimes they stack it like this. And then the unknown thing is down here. So this is comfortable. We know what those two things are. We know what those two things are. These things we don't know. So the whole job of the math is figuring out what we don't know. What algebra does is this. 5 plus something equals 12. And suddenly the known thing and the unknown thing are on the same side. But they don't use question marks. They use letters. And a letter just means we don't know what that number is, and maybe we'll figure it out. But we just have to be okay with being uncomfortable for a second. And then we can figure things out. We want math like this. That kind of math is cool, and stacked up math is cool. Well, there's a way to get there, and this is how it goes. I'm going to change to blue. So I'm going to start with that 5 plus something equals 12. Yes, we could mentally figure this out. We did 5 plus 7 before, and it clicked in our head, 5 plus 7, that's going to be 12. What we want to do is get the unknown thing all by itself. Just like we said before, when we had stacked math, when we had this, the unknown thing right here was all by itself. And that felt good. So that's what we want to get to. And there's a way to do it. And that's actually what algebra asks us to do. It's called isolating the variable. So we want to get the x all by itself. That means we got to get rid of this 5. Now this 5 is just sitting there being a 5. The way to get rid of a 5 is to subtract 5. You know, this is $5, and then somebody takes away $5. That makes it go away. But since there's an equal sign, to be fair and equal, whatever we do to one side, we got to do to the other. Now, this thing, 5 minus 5, we don't do any math over there. All we do are magic tricks and arts and crafts. I just made it disappear. Or that's arts and crafts. It's gone. The only thing that's left is the x. So the x comes on down, and then we get to do the math we like over here. All the known things are up top, 12 minus 5, and the unknown thing becomes 7, and that's how we isolate the variable. That is one-step algebra. So I'm going to unwind it, and we'll go through those steps again. And I'm going to try to say things the same way every time, and sometimes I tell stupid stories. So this is our first comparison. It's like country music. And country music's sad because a dog ran away, a pickup truck broke down, or somebody broke their heart. And somebody broke our heart, so we want our x's to be alone, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but I try to say it every time. So we want the x to be alone, which means we got to get rid of the numbers next to it. That 5's got to go. So it's a positive 5. We do the opposite and minus 5. But to be fair and equal, we do it to the other side too. This side gets crossed out. There's no math to do there. We just get rid of stuff. X comes on down, and then we like this kind of math. We said that. Stacked math makes sense, plus you get to use a calculator. And 12 minus 5 is 7. So now I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. I'm going to do x minus 13 equals 25. Bigger numbers, 2 digits, whatever. Everything stays the same. Country music, we want to get that x alone. We have this minus 13. Now the question is that a minus 13 or is it a negative 13? It's the same thing. At this part of the story, 13 things, whatever apples, whatever they are, go away. But we want to get that x all by itself. And the way we're going to get it by itself is do the opposite. That is a minus 13. So we add 13. Whatever that thing is, we do the opposite. Okay, so we flip the sign, and then to be fair and equal, we got to do it to both sides. This side over here, we just cross out. There's no math. It just disappears. This is like borrowing 13 bucks and then paying it back. It all evens out. And then x comes on down, and then we get to do that math we like, stacked math. And that's going to be our answer. Okay, so I'm going to unwind it. What did I do differently than the other problem? Well, the number was first, and it was positive. So I made it second, and I made it negative. But the rules stay the same. We want the x alone. So we just do the opposite of whatever the operation is. Minus, we do plus. And then we do plus on this side because we got to do everything fair. That stuff gets crossed out. X comes on down. And that's going to be our answer. Okay, so here's some practice ones. If you want to copy them down, if you're watching the video, pause it and try these out on your own, and you will be a master of one-step algebra. Okay, now that's with one example. Pause this and give it a shot. Okay, so hopefully these are the answers we got. That's plus and minus. We just do the opposite and then do it on the other side, do math and arts and crafts. We figure out what it is. Now we're going to do multiplying and dividing. Okay, so on the first thing we did with one-step algebra was we want to get the x alone, and we had to do the opposite of what was going on with the x on the x side. So if it was adding, we subtracted. If it was subtracting or negative, we added. Well, now we got to do multiplying and dividing. So the example I'm going to use is if we saw it, this is old school multiplication, whatever. 8 times 3 is 24. Well, algebra tweaks a rule, and so I'm going to change it from, I'm going to change the problem, but we got to notice something. 8 times something equals 40. You know, so we don't have to have this stuff memorized. If it's 8 times 5 gets us 40, but here's how algebra is going to write it. Since we use x's as unknowns, we can't use that multiplying symbol as an x. So they stop using that. And instead, there's a bunch of different ways to write multiplication in algebra, and we'll get used to them. But we got to say goodbye to that x. And they use one thing I use a lot, but whatever, is a times dot. So a big old dot in there in the middle of the number means multiply. That way we can use x for the unknown thing. Now, 8 times something equals 40. We know the answer is 5. But how do we get it? We want to get the x alone. Same rule. Isolate the variable. Get your x's alone, like country music. But we got to get rid of that 8. The 8 is trying to multiply. The opposite of multiplying is division. So we got to look at division symbols and go, you know what? A division symbol is nothing but a picture of a fraction. It's a line with something on top and something on the bottom. So this is going to help us link this together with fractions. And all we have to do is look at fractions slightly differently. So this is how we can look at fractions. 2 divided by 3, if you type that into your calculator, you will turn that fraction into a decimal. If we had to do it by hand, that's the number we kick out. So these 3 things, all these things are the same. 2/3, 2 divided by 3, or 3 divided into 2. And the place we want to really feel home with that is in a fraction. But that's not really our problem right now. What we're dealing with is that division and fractions are the same thing. So we go back to the problem, and remember what we said, we want to get the x alone, and 8 is trying to multiply with it, so we've got to divide out the 8. by doing the opposite. And the way we do that is putting it downstairs. And we know on that side, on the left side, we're not going to do any math. We're just going to cross stuff out. But to be fair and equal, we got to throw that 8 on the other side. And I drew this tail a little bit long because here we go. We're going to cross that out. 8x is going to come on down. And this reminds me, that's my top-down math. Just like we had 12 minus 5 gave us 7, or whatever it was, we do 40 in our calculator divided by 8 gives us 5. So it's not terrible. It's just actions to get used to. So I'm going to do another one real quick. 7 times a number. I didn't even put the times dot in there because two things next to each other that are like multiply. So I could put that there. 7 times nothing. And let's make this something we don't know. Let's make it 3. It'll be 3. So we'll know what the answer is going to be. It's just how do we get there? That times dot may or may not be there. This means 7 times a number we don't know. What we want to do is just like you don't think about walking when you don't think in your head left, right, left, right, left, right. You just do it. When we want to get that x alone and we want to get rid of that 7, it's upstairs, put it downstairs, do the same thing on the other side. Cross those out. X comes on down. And you saw I drew the tail a little bit extra long. That's how we type it into our calculator. And that's how we get everything 100% right. Okay, so if you want to pause this and give it a try, all of those things mean 4 times a number we don't know, 3 times a number we don't know, and they're multiplying. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So pause the video and give it a shot. Okay, so use this example up here, answer the other ones, and pause video and give that a shot. And we want to use our calculator. So this stuff we should start to get habitual about it. If we see something next to an x and we want to get rid of it, we just put it downstairs. Do it on both sides, and remember, fraction is a divide down. And if we can do that, calculator does all the heavy lifting. Let the calculator do this stuff. All we want to do is get the points. So now we move on to two-step algebra, and this style of equation, this thing, is the most common that we're going to see in the GED test. We'll know how to do more and more complicated stuff, but things tend to land, word problems, lots of stuff tend to land in this style of equation. And our first thing that we want to do is be able to solve for x. So if it was just x plus 4, we knew what to do. We would get rid of the 4 and do minus 4. And if it was 5 times x equals something, we would just put the 5 downstairs. The question is, when we have 2 of them, which one do we do first? Always do the lonely one first. So this one is here and it's all by itself. And we'll save that one for later. So we do minus 4. Minus 4. We know on the left side, all we do is mark stuff away in arts and crafts. This stuff slides on down to round 2. We do honest to goodness math over here. 29 minus 4 is 25. Forgot my equal sign. And now this next step should be super familiar. It's next to it, so we put it in the basement. And those are our 2 steps and how we solve two-step algebra. Type that into your calculator in that order. And what's beautiful about this is almost all the math on this side is going to be just top down. It'll be something plus something or something divided by something. Now sometimes it'll be different. In that exception where you have to go downstairs to upstairs is slightly different, but still it'll all follow the same rule. Okay, so if you can think of the two steps we want to do, remember the rule, get your x alone. Get the x's alone. We got to get rid of two numbers. So this is problem 1 and this is problem 2. So which of these numbers goes first? That one or that one? If you've got an idea, explore and do one number first and the other like we showed. Pause it and give them both a try. Okay, so we're going to go that and that. Those cross out. 4x comes on down. 19 minus 3 is 16. Next step, it's trying to multiply, so we divide. We want to think that through. And whatever we do to one side, we got to do to the other. Those cancel out. And this is what we type into our calculator. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So when we look at this, it turns into this side, the right side just turns into plain old math, just the way we like it. And this side is just a bunch of steps in how to eliminate something and get the x all by itself. Now, sometimes the x is going to be on the right and whatever. You can flop things around so we're comfortable. I'm a creature of habit, so I like putting the x on the left. But if you didn't get a chance to try this, pause the video and try to solve that one all by yourself. And that's two-step algebra. So I'll put up some samples and give them a shot. So check your math, and sometimes they can be negative numbers. The answer can be a negative number. It can be a fraction. It can be a decimal. Well, it'd be a decimal before it'd be a fraction. But those are the steps, and the steps are always the same, and they do not change. This is the number one kind of problem. Now, they're not going to ask it straight ahead. They probably will ask us in a word problem or different applied ways. That's for next video, but it's all the same math every time, those two steps. So great job.